Just skip your exams again. Solid advice for everybody out there. Thanks from Seiko. The interesting thing I took from his interview is he believes there's only one play.
Yes.
And although that is technically correct, I think that Hearthstone is too complicated to say there is only one play.
Yes. Hearthstone's a very hard game, so sometimes people make mistakes. We've been seeing that a lot. We've also been seeing some great plays this weekend. Hopefully, Seiko shows us a couple more brilliant maneuvers.
And Jarla said that he knows that he is a slow control player, and he is correct. Jarla, though, is one of those players, again, who will be looking for a big performance, and getting into the mix here is very important for him. Another player, a bit like Casey, who had a lot of very close to breakout wins last year, obviously has done well with his team as well in various bits and pieces, but still a guy who probably feels the need to prove himself, although we all know he doesn't need to. We know how good he is.
I mean, he kind of has the same thing that Casey did, where he never got that big win, but he had a ton of top 8s, top 4s, top 16s, top 32s last year.
So let's have a look at Jarla's deck, see which particular breed of slow deck he's brought today. And the person on my left, which is Gallen, is going to argue that this isn't that slow of a deck.
It's not. He even has augmented Elix, so he's trying to be even quicker. However, Jarla is the slowest person that plays the game.
Is that fair?
I think you were telling a story about how there's one tournament where there were 7 rounds.
Yeah, there were 9 rounds.
9 rounds, and 6 of them were waiting on Jarla. So he was the last match, 6 out of 9 rounds.
Yeah, and to the point where they actually had time to get him off the floor in a best of 5 because there was another game still to go. Move him to the feature area and play the next game.
And remember,
after a Swiss.
This wasn't 16 players. This was a field of 250.
Yeah.
And he was the last one for 6 out of 9 rounds.
That we know of. There may have been others where it was 2-2 and we couldn't get him off the floor. He may have been last all 9 rounds for all I know. But he is a very cautious player. He does take a lot of time on his turns, but he makes very few mistakes because of it. So the downside is, if you're playing like that, you really had better be able to have a lot of stamina in those big lands. Not so much here.
If anyone has the stamina to deal with it, it's Seiko. Seiko is also someone that could easily go long in a game.
Can Seiko stay awake for more than like an hour and a half?
Funny joke. Well, last year, Seiko was probably the best player in the world at Shutterwalk Shaman, which was also notorious for very long games. I think he can adapt to Jarla's playstyle very easily. And I also think he's pretty favored in this matchup with Cyclone Mage versus Bomb Warrior. However, there are some weird tech inclusions that I'm not sure will benefit him as much as you might think, specifically Vex Crow. He does also have a Doomsayer, which is uncommon. However, I do think Doomsayer is actually good versus Bomb Warrior in certain specific
I can see that. Just in terms of switching around the tempo rather than necessarily blowing a load of things. You can freeze and explode, but
depending on how Jarla plays, it might not work out. But I know that versus me, it would be very good. You know, I'm someone that looks for a 1 into 3 into 3, and Doomsayer kind of blows that out of the water.
See how Jarla instantly going to declare what he wants to do. I assume you keep Snip Snap, and then you've got to decide what to do with Spellbreaker, which you probably don't want to keep.
Snip Snap is very good if you get Eternium over a Clockwork Goblin. Specifically Clockwork Goblin, it's very good.
But also, if you are considering it as an unfavorable, maybe you want to try and get the
best. Well, I mean, that is one of the better ways to win the matchup, is going Clockwork Goblin into Snip Snap. Turn 2, turn 3. Jarla says he's on the coin. He doesn't need to rush Seiko down as soon as possible because he doesn't have the other cards that makes that hand work. Seiko is not going to go Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling for quite a while.
There's the Goblin, which he wouldn't have had yet, obviously, had he kept the Snip Snap. He wouldn't get till next turn, by which time it's made. It's crazy how the first 2 or 3 turns of this game look like nothing's happening, and then in a few turns' time, this is going to be wild.
I think that's more based on how Seiko analyzes his turns.
Observe and
Jarla's game plan is going to be pretty consistent throughout, I would say, but Seiko's can vary wildly based on what he draws.
Well, that's fixed a lot of things.
Makes coin 3 into 3 look very appealing.
Yeah, with a 4 backup afterwards.
Even Jarla can't give that up. The slowest player in the game. And that might be a little bit unfair. Jarla...
Yeah, it's a bit harsh on Zalay.
Yes. Zalay is someone that takes his time quite a bit. He actually had a game versus Seiko at Las Vegas. They were playing the Bomb Warrior Mirror in a best of 3, and it took about 2 hours.
And imagine if it had gone to 2-1.
Oh.
I think actually in the first round, Zalay was featured because his game was going slowly in Vegas, and it was 2-0, and it was the last one to finish.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me. Zalay takes his time to think about every single scenario.
Tempo of which you have been speaking all day, just switching towards Jarla's way here.
This is the start that you want as Bomb Warrior in Game 1 specifically. You do not have the tech cards that beat Mountain Giant or Conjurer's Calling plus Mountain Giant in Big Game Hunter and Super Collider. So how do you get it? If you can't go over the mage, you go under, which means you play 1 drop, 3 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, 5 drop, and they die.
Seiko tempted by just Luna Banana to draw a card now, but if he waits a turn and gets a cheap spell, things could go crazy with Luna and Sorcerer's Apprentice, but I don't think he's got the time. He really wants to hold on to cards.
And reflect.
Because his deck basically functions on lots of cards.
The first thing that Seiko is probably analyzing is pinging here. Is that ever worth it? You have Stargazer, Luna, Banana, but then you start dying to stuff like Militia Commander. Seiko could just be saying, oh, okay, it's not in his hand.
And I mean, the way that the game is mapping out, he'll be dead in 2 or 3 times if you factor in the bombs as well.
Yeah.
So he's just got to dig for things. But you're right, this Militia Commander plus the 7 to the face. Actually,
that looks great.
Yeah, it really does. I was going to say actually, but I don't know what the actually would.
Seiko only runs 1 Frost Nova in his deck.
That's actually really interesting, and I should have asked you about that.
I think you want Frost Novas versus Mage specifically, but against other matchups they matter far less.
But in a week where people were thinking that Mage might be a thing,
maybe Seiko has the read that other people will not bring Mage because people might think Mage is a thing.
He seems to have, because his secondary and tertiary decks don't care about Mage either.
Sure, but then you look at like the Doomsayer,
that is his read.
Good guard versus Mage.
That is his read. That no Mages this week.
He's probably thinking about a lot of things.
Yeah, he thinks about Yep, Jarla concludes that Militia Commander is the right card for this job.
I'm sure he figured that out in the first second of the turn, but even still, he's taking, the extra 70 seconds to figure it out.
Yeah, I have spoken to Jarla specifically about this before, and he is a player who likes to remind himself constantly of the things he needs to be doing.
I think that's right. I mean, if you're not going to use your time, you have all the time in the world.
Again,
I guess
I'm not sure it's correct in a day where you're playing 7 or 8 rounds of Swiss to tire yourself out thinking about every possibility in every game.
Sure.
I think you gain less from it in a turn like the last one there than you would lose by being really tired during round 7 of Swiss. But when you're playing one match, one day,
why not take all the
and
time?
It's really huge, why not take every single
The answer is because Seiko can also think about his turn, and I would say that your plays are not nearly as hard as Seiko's are for the rest of the game. 90% of the time you're going Militia Commander, or 100% of the time you're going Militia Commander, and then 90% you're going Wrench Caliber the next turn,
Yeah.
For Seiko, he has so many different things that he needs to think about.
Like, how am I not going to take 12 damage if a bomb goes off?
Reflect.
And also here, Seiko's got to start thinking, realistically, how many turns do I have to win this before I hit a bomb? How much sort of luck am I allowed to give myself?
Not
because
many.
At some point, one will go off.
Yeah, currently there are 3 in Seiko's deck. There's going to be 4, and then 5 and 6 with the second Wrench Caliber.
So that's 1 in 4, so you give yourself a bit of a lucky run. 1 in 6. 6 turns maximum before a bomb goes off. So you've not got long. You've got to start freezing stuff.
That's not how statistics work, but yeah,
no,
on average.
You pick an average and then you go,
you don't go for
I
average.
need to be luckier than average.
That's what I'm saying. Is in Seiko Spot, I don't even think you worry about being below average.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know how statistics work. You were...
It's been known.
Yes. Lorinda is the main statistician of Hearthstone, actually.
The unofficial.
The unofficial. The officially unofficial.
So brawl, win with the rover, hit your opponent for 4, put another bomb in their deck.
That sounds smart. Does that always happen, though?
We'll find out. Schrodinger's
What
brawl.
now?
You put all 7 minions in a box.
Well, technically, they're all, I guess, during the brawl.
During the brawl.
During the brawl,
Now that brawl
Schrodinger's
has been
situation,
fixed,
because
so
they're
that-
both alive and dead.
Yeah. It used to be different because the one that was in the box last was the first one out.
Actually, I'm going to correct you, because since you have a weapon, the taunts are not in Schrodinger's brawl, because you can check to see if they survived or not.
You have to be quick. But if you're observing it, you're cheating anyway.
So you're saying a weapon face is like a bad scientist?
Yeah.
Unethical science?
Unethical science.
What now?
Jarla saying, why would I brawl this? There's only 1/8 in play.
Yeah, why would I brawl all these stuff? And
Not even attacking.
yeah, because Seiko can't take the hit. It's forcing Seiko to do more things before making a decision. And one of the keys to playing control decks, or decks that have control elements, is making sure you use your cards efficiently. And one of the keys to using them efficiently is to make sure you know what your opponent's doing first, before guessing what to do. Make them reveal as much about their hand as possible.
By not attacking?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't
Very
work out
minor thing.
why the non-attack was there. Presumably because...
Because my question is if we attack, or if Jarla attacks and he gets a warpath off the top,
he doesn't want Seiko to be able to ping away his 0/2 to
But
make
he's never doing
monsters on
that.
board.
Seiko is never doing that. He's never committing 2 mana to pinging his own O2. Or
Not even later in the game.
No. That's not happening. That's how he's staying alive right now. Seiko would ping his only taunt minion. Seiko is saying there is no brawl. The reason that I wanted to push 1 damage into the O2 is if we got a warpath off the top, you could warpath down the taunt, and you'd still have 3 damage that you could push.
Yes.
It's a very minor thing, but I do think it matters. Oh,
Here it comes. Again, not hitting him.
that one is more
Because it's one
responsible.
face if you win.
Yes. And a 2/2 lives.
And celebrates in the artwork.
Jarla says, why would I care about this 2/2?
Yeah, 2 bombs and I win.
You have
Over the
answers.
next few
Yes.
turns, not 2 immediate bombs. That also wins, so it's not the point.
Oh.
There's the card that Seiko needed, or one of 2 or 3 cards. And this could get interesting fast.
Vicious Scale Hides off of this Conjurer's Calling would be good, for example. Cheaty Ankle Biters. However, Dynamatic deals with that much more efficiently
We must band together, united for Dalaran.
than the Vicious Scale Hides.
Is this real or an illusion?
That's what I'm wondering about this entire turn. What is happening?
Job's done.
The spells here will determine a lot.
Bit of a mix. Jarla suddenly under a lot of pressure.
Less than you might think.
Okay.
I think that at 39, you can really tank hits from this, for a couple more turns. There's 16 damage in play right now.
With that in mind, is it worth just Dynamaticking and then hope the second Dynamatic next turn just finishes things off?
You could also just go Militia Commander this turn, and then next turn go Dynamatic.
Okay. Well, you'd only have 9 mana.
Oh yeah, I apologize.
Which would be awkward.
Yes, that does not work.
I think if you swing into a minion because the difference between 9 and 6
That
is 0.
in mind, it seems like Dynamatic is a better play than.
You want to swing into a minion first, I think. And then you should kill a minion with your Dynamatic as well. You might even kill 2. You're very unlucky if you split it 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 amongst the remaining 5 minions.
Killing it first also means that Khadgar is slightly worse. Khadgar says it summons an extra one, correct? Not double the amount.
Yes. Alright, that didn't end up too well. At all. Jarla fans hate to see that.
There's still a lot of bombs in Seiko's deck. He's really not under the gun yet. You know, there's not a lot of pressure being applied right now.
Yeah, Jarla just needs to...
There is a lot of pressure, but not enough that Jarla is like... Jarla can easily survive 1 or 2 more turns.
However, he can't easily survive a Sea Giant. He can't get rid of it right now.
I think that's fine. I think that at 37 life total, he survives this turn.
Yep.
Very often, he survives next turn.
So the unsaid thing here is, once again, you're talking about how strong all the cards in the Warrior deck. Because you're giving him 2 turns to get things. The bombs might just win the game on the spot, and your 2 draws are also quite good.
Now we're in a spot where if Jarla just stays alive, he's going to win.
He has the inevitability.
Yes.
Seiko just has to debate whether Arcane Explosion for 1 extra face damage matters.
And this second Dynamatic is going to be
disgusting most of the time.
Yeah. Now this is interesting because you can play the Dynamatic first before the shield block this time around, because if crazy things happen, you can kill the Sea Giant with a Militia Gun.
Oh, wow.
Another thing.
And he probably just does that, right?
Yeah.
You don't have a brawl, so if Seiko gets a Conjurer's Calling off the top.
Defend the gates.
Yeah, now things are looking really bleak for Seiko. Not that they weren't already, but oh, Mounted Giant, speak too soon.
I don't even think Mountain Giant is the play this turn. Maybe you're supposed to just Flame Strike because...
And then do you Cinderstorm or not? Because it sets up...
That's also a good consideration. Does it set up lethal? I think that's a question that you have.
You do 13, it puts your opponent down to 12.
And
then next turn you have Fireball, which is 14, 12
15.
plus 2 armor is
Yes,
also 14.
yes. So Flame Strike Cinderstorm, you're saying, is... Seiko saying, nope, I just value getting that extra ping in. A lot to consider there.
Indeed. Now the Giant's going to die, so it wouldn't have mattered either way. In this instance.
Yes.
And now Jarla's got to consider playing a Spellbreak onto an empty board because it represents lethal plus bomb. And does it ever actually do anything?
Your magic shall not
It never breaks any spells that matter anyway.
Makes a lot of sense. A bomb drawn for Seiko. Seiko is forced off of this Mountain Giant because of that unfortunate draw.
And also because the Spellbreak was blocked.
Yes.
Because now he has
yes. Jarla put Seiko in a position where he was going to lose and he did not.
This time it's a lot different because the Elec doesn't represent any lethal, and the Elec actually is better if next turn a bomb is drawn or something. But you want the defensive option, apparently.
Jarla also represents lethal with Dr. Boom and Kaboom hero power.
Also 3 plus 5 is 8. 3 from the Elec, 5 from the Warpath would have killed a Giant without backup plan.
Yep.
Assembly.
Ooh.
Wow, you okay? Did he just leave?
Seiko's hand is full of air. And his deck is full of bombs. Frost Nova keeps him alive.
For now. But there's so many bombs.
I mean, Jarla isn't going to stop putting on the pressure. His next turn is not Armor Up Pass, it is Boom Reaver. That's 2 more minions that Seiko will have to deal with. How does he win?
Well, First of all, you have to stay alive.
Games 2 and Games 3 is the answer, is how he wins this match.
And Games 2 and Games 3.
Jarla up 1-0 in what many would call an unfavorable matchup. Specifically Game 1, Bomb Warrior versus Cyclone Mage.
Yeah, I'm going to be a difficult man to convince. I know you're difficult to convince because you just think Bomb Warrior is favoured against everything, including itself. But
I just said that it was unfavored.
you said people would consider it unfavoured.
Well,
But I'm not a big Mage fan. I feel like it's not favoured against many things.
I think that Mage in the hands of the right person is a very strong deck. I think it is a very skill-intensive...
Nice put down.
Well, I'm just saying that Seiko got to a 7-2 record not through just deck choice, but also
Sure.
skill up.
He's rather good at this game. It does look like he's going to be able to go with tertiary deck, though it's not confirmed just yet. And it's confirmed now. Seiko is going to go with that tertiary
And
deck. So let's have a
Jarla
look
is most
at
likely
that
going to his
strategy.
tertiary as well, the Big Game Hunter and Super Collider. So Seiko adds a Harrison Jones, Astromancers, Twilight Drakes. Astromancers and Twilight Drakes have been pretty standard for the anti-warrior
We've
deck
seen
list.
it a lot, yeah.
Yes.
We haven't really seen it be particularly...
I think
It
we have
doesn't
seen
seem
it
to have swung the matchup much more than the initial. We haven't really seen an Astromancer go, yeah, I've won. It's a bit of sustained extra.
Sure, but we've also seen it been played in kind of awkward positions. I remember one game we saw Swids play it as a coin Twilight Drake, and it wasn't good, but it was also because of the sequencing of how he played the cards. The Twilight Drake ended up being like not so great.
It's not those times when you see a warrior beat, say, a mech paladin though with double EMP and
Yes,
three
yes,
silence.
it's not,
It's not game.
It's not a card that you draw and says, this wins me the game on the spot, go to game 3. It's more of a, it's a hard to answer threat. Usually it's answered with Shield Slam, but if it's getting Shield Slam, that means that your Mountain Giant is not dying to that.
And Jarla has also switched to his tertiary deck. Let's see if we can get a peeky at that.
That makes
And
sense.
he's gone with the Hunter Ace strategy, which is not a surprise because they're on the same team, of Big Game Hunter, Super Collider, ×1.
As one, but he also adds a second an Omega Devastator. I believe that Hunter Ace did not add the Omega Devastator to his list, which
He didn't.
added
He
in
just
the
had the two
Yes,
cards,
yes.
which is why we were sort of
yes.
gently mocking the amusement level.
So one of the reasons behind this is if you only have singleton copies of cards, then your opponent is less likely to play around them. You know, when you have two Big Game Hunters and no Super Colliders, for example, then they can always do the Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling. But when you have one of each, then they have to think about both. And usually they don't respect either. So.
And the removals. He takes out a Dynamatic, which is reasonably interesting, actually.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot of people were taking out just a singleton copy of Dynamatic.
Because they seem okay.
Yes.
They kill 8/8s on their own
Yep.
if you have Boom in play.
Jarla has an interesting choice here. Obviously, Town Crier is a great card. There is some consideration to keeping Brawl with specific hands against Mage. I think on the coin it makes a lot less sense because they don't have the powerful starts that they normally do with coin.
Okay.
But there are maybe, you know, let's say you have 3 incredibly good cards. You know, for example, your hand is Town Crier, Brawl, Super Collider, Dr. Boom.
Yep.
You probably keep Brawl in that instance.
Job done.
Yeah, because you've
You got everything
got
else.
everything else. You might
Yeah.
have the backup plan of the good card. This is going to be interesting. We are going to get to see again, and we've seen other people do it, but none of those people were Seiko. The Twilight Drake start.
I think that we'll probably see it turn 4 because it costs 4 mana.
Yeah?
That's my high-level analysis of the situation.
I'm glad you're here for that.
Glad to provide any
Stealing
insight
my
I could.
analysis,
Yes.
yeah, and pushing me into a corner of having to go even
Oh,
further down the
and here you go.
analysis.
Town Crier just dealt 1 damage because it has 1 attack. So I'm stealing all of your...
Yeah, now I'm going to have to talk about weird stuff like if you
macro-level gameplay
have
decisions.
to cut RDU's video, how would you do it into 1 minute? And talk about other
He does
stuff.
talk quite a bit.
He's got a lot to say.
Yep.
He's a very thoughtful person. Or person with a lot of thoughts or something.
Stargazer Luna, decent card versus Warrior. You generally don't play it in the early game. You play it in the late game alongside a Sorcerer's Apprentice for just a lot of card generation. It often forces your opponents into a weird spot where they have to use a Warpath that might not be efficient, or they have to take a Brawl when they would rather Brawl Giants, for example.
There's no read for Jarla here either on anything to do with a hand of Seiko, so gives you a very ABC strategy.
Jarla's just setting up to deal with the Twilight Drake if it comes down.
And here they come. It's Twilight Drake time. The setup is done for 8.
He also swung last turn to play around Harrison Jones if it came down. If anyone is confused about why.
I think one of the weird things about Twilight Drake, and I do agree that it's better than the cards it replaces, is the threat of Conjurer's Calling isn't too threatening, and the threat of the 4/8 in its own right isn't too threatening. Although it is obviously very good board presence, it kills everything that the warrior push down.
I mean, based on how quickly Jarla played those last couple of turns, I'm pretty sure this was his game plan from the get-go. Yeah. I mean, we've seen him rope everything where he's even, like, slightly unsure.
Yes.
So this must mean that he just understands exactly how to play it out. Because, like, look at what's happening here. He set it up so that he could kill a second Twilight Drake or a Mountain Giant if it came down. Because he set up the 3 damage from his minions, plus the Militia Commander, still playing around Harrison Jones at the same time.
Yeah, we saw Huntrace have the same sort of setups, making sure that he can always deal with the next thing. And it's not easy. It's easy to do when you're watching it. You see both hands, you know what they're dealing with. But
it
make sure you keep doing damage at the same time.
It makes sense if you just work back. Like if you reverse engineer the turns, everything just immediately lines up where you say, ah, yes,
he did it. It's obvious.
It's obvious.
But it's not obvious when you're going through it from front forwards to backwards.
Backwards to forwards. Whichever way around that is.
Yes.
Behold the tools of
so much coming down now, though. For Seiko.
Important question: do you play this Mana Cyclone? And if you're playing this Mana Cyclone, do you also play an Evocation beforehand?
If you don't play it, when do you ever get anything off it?
Later in the game.
Much later, though, with this hand. You've got one spell that you want to play soon.
You can also maybe get a 2-mana spell or cheaper off of this Mana Cyclone that is on the far right.
Interesting, the do you play the evocation question is a little bit more interesting, because you will have another Mana Cyclone and some Giants, and you have a Sandbinder in your hand. But he just wants a lot of good cards, so that's what he does.
Fireball is pretty stellar, the other cards are not. Blast Wave always feels a little bit counter to what your game plan is. You're often doing it on turns where you're playing Mirror Images and Mana Cyclones and Sorcerer's Apprentices, for example.
Code of Code might be alright.
It's going to be very specific scenarios where that card is okay.
Yeah. But mage cards tend to be okay, even the bad ones, to some extent. Not like Shaman cards, where the bad ones are just garbage.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. There's a lot of bad mage spells, but really with Mana Cyclone, a lot of times it's quantity over quality.
Yeah, you pump it up and you're guaranteed to get some stuff.
You try to get like 1 or 2 good cards. The good ones being Power Creation, Fireball, Pyroblast. Even Arcane Intellect is quite good. Anything that generates resources. So Fireball is probably a great pickup. Conjurer's Calling, for example, is another great pickup. But stuff like Cone of Cold, which is much more of a reactive tool when you're the proactive game plan, or Blast Wave, which is a very much a reactive tool when you're the proactive game plan, just don't really fit what you want. Jarla recognizes how scary Luna is in this matchup.
What we saw earlier, we saw Huntrace take down a Luna where his choice was leave Luna up and kill everything else, or silence Luna and leave everything up. And he went for the silence Luna option.
Yes.
And taking a chunk of damage instead. It's reasonably obvious, but also sometimes you get brave. Just once every a few games you think, nah, I can get away with it. And you never get away with it. It always goes horribly wrong.
Mountain Giant between the taunt minions.
Observe.
What if you don't even play Mountain Giant between the taunt minions? No, you still do it. So what I'm thinking is that... Oh, he's playing it over here.
Yeah, what were you thinking? Because that's interesting. Positioning things.
Well, if this happens, where you have 2 taunts off of it...
A Super Collider.
Suddenly, Warpath Super Collider works.
Yes.
To clear it. If he puts it between the 2 O2s, then it makes it a 50-50.
Okay.
I think that this was a slight positioning error from Seiko. And Jarla does not have to punish. It's not going to matter, but I would like him to review how he did this.
No, I think you're right. I think that's important.
It's the 1 in 4 that he gets both taunt minions, so that Jarla can guarantee hit one of them into the other. And then since he only has 2 mana for the Warpath, he cannot Warpath twice to guarantee if Seiko put it between the 2 O2s.
Yeah, so it's really important.
What now?
On the occasions that it matters, it's really important.
On the occasion it matters, it really matters.
Yeah.
50% of the time, it really matters. Jarla is very unhappy to see this. He has really no answer to this.
Yeah, so the first thing you look at is, can I win before I die? And the answer is no.
This is kind of where like keeping Brawl is a benefit to you.
It is.
But again,
the other side to that is
didn't have the
40%
hand.
of the time you lose the brawl anyway, and then it just gets Conjurers calling it again.
Sure. And you don't really have the hand to back it up when you're in the mulligan phase.
Yeah, lots of damage coming in here. Seiko really just needs to work out how much he dare leave up on the other side of the board.
It's kind of ironic that Cone of Cold here actually seems quite good.
It is kind of what I had in mind when I said it, honestly. But then I sort of backed out because actually it's not that good against the boom bots because it just kills them, and that's not always what you want to be doing compared to these effects.
Very rarely the boom bots actually kill one of your 7/8s.
Sure, but you don't want them to go into your face if the game works out differently and you're on 13 and 24. Yeah, they're not going to kill your minions like well, they can. Now I've said that.
Theoretically,
they shouldn't.
This killing 2 boombots here will sometimes do it.
And Seiko doesn't care. He's just going to put all this into the face. You've got a 7/7 and a couple of boom things. I don't care. And your 7/7, by the way, is stuck.
Nope. I was going to say that a very small percentage of the time.
Yeah, as the Sea Giant just went. There's a brawl.
Brawl off the top. That's the good one. We're looking at a 40%er right now. Maybe Jarla commits like an augmented Elic to get the percentage up.
But then does he win? Because he wants that Elec to go with the Wrench Cannon to get the percentage of actually doing some damage.
We have seen Jarla make brawls like this happen, where he just commits another thing into it. There was a game he had versus RDU, where he took a 25% brawl instead of a 33%, or some other way around.
Yeah.
And it paid off drastically. He actually won the game because of that decision. So I think like the basic level play is, oh, if I just win this brawl and get a 7/6, put an augmented Elic into play, that's the most tempo I can generate.
Oh, so he's decided the Acolyte's useless because...
I mean, it still is useful,
right.
But you have to make sacrifices sometimes in the game plan.
I mean, the point of the Acolyte is it draws you cards once you've stabilized, but he was there as a chance to actually do the stabilizing or draw the cards.
Seiko's turn becomes quite easy after this. Yeah. Khadgar Conjurer's calling.
And this makes Jarla's turn quite easy as well. He has to draw
Brawl.
Too small.
I will show you.
Because this board's rather large. And that's not a brawl.
Only 9 mana.
Goes to 1 game all between Seiko and Jarla. Big deal if Jarla can get this. This division is still, despite promises from us at the start of the show, not really resolving itself in any way or form today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Seiko was really happy to pick up that win. I mean, duh.
No, but I mean, in context of he was 7-1 yesterday,
yeah,
miles ahead, safe for the playoffs, safe enough. Then he loses. A lot of the people, because they've all played each other, only 2 games behind.
He's 1-2 in the last 3 games. He started 6-0 into 1-2.
Right.
So that's like maybe something. Maybe people are actually figuring out how he's preparing. It could just be.
Maybe he got too laid back, which I doubt from Seiko.
I doubt that.
We know him, and he's not like that. But
could also be preparing for Vegas.
Yeah,
there's a lot of factors to it.
But suddenly 7-3, when people are 6-4, looks nowhere near as dominating as his current position. And with 4 more games to go, just having a head start of 1 is, yeah,
it's a little bit, yeah.
Not so keen. They are going to stay with the same decks to the surprise of absolutely nobody, which is good.
Yeah.
I'm not in the mood for surprises. I had enough surprises earlier in the Boston match.
And we saw the Twilight Drakes, both the Twilight Drakes that game, and while they were answered by Jarla, he had to commit a lot of resources to deal with them.
Yeah, it made a big difference. Like, it was very interesting to see. And again, they made no obvious difference. You have to actually think what difference they made. And the difference they made is Jarla just couldn't deal with stuff as the game went on. The Drakes didn't do anything.
I mean, they made Jarla use his resources that he did not want to commit. Yeah. So that's a lot of Hearthstone. Sometimes you play cards so that they die. You know, it's not that your opponent has no answer, it's that you make them use their answers.
Yeah, and teasing those answers out, especially against Bomb Warrior, which again, we keep stressing all day because some of you don't watch all of the matches. Shame on you.
How dare they?
We keep stressing this isn't really your traditional control deck. So it does have limited ways to kill things.
One thing that's really cool about Bomb Warrior is that there's just so many ways to play the game with it.
Yeah, it's not quite Malygos Druid, but I get the point.
Yes, Malygos Druid had a lot of different lines that you could take.
And those are the most interesting decks, especially for players like yourself, the pro players, because you then get a way to outplay people as well as have a better deck.
Sure, sure.
You know, you will find ways to beat people because they haven't seen a situation that you can spot or something, and then you'll win an extra few % here and there, which makes a massive difference over
The course of
14
100
rounds of
yes.
Swiss, right? Suddenly a 10% difference is an extra win.
10% difference is actually incredibly huge.
Yes.
And it also gets harder. Here's another thing that I want to talk about. Like, when you talk about win rates of players, 70 to 75% is way, 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 way harder than 50 to 70%.
Yes.
I think they're both very difficult.
Yeah, it's really interesting how that works.
But after a certain point, like, if you actually do the math of how many games you need to win to get to that point, it starts ballooning.
It gets ridiculous. I mean, again, from the stats last year, you see these, how many people are in each category, and it's reached a certain point, that's it. Suddenly it just reaches a tipping point. Nobody goes beyond that sort of percentage.
So, like, here's the thing about 50% versus 75% that I just want to highlight. If you have a 50% win rate, you win one game for every one game your opponent wins. That's just how the math works.
Yes.
For a 75% win rate, you're winning 3 games for every game your opponent wins.
Okay.
You're literally tripling the wins you get.
Yep.
You're literally playing 3 times as well if you go from 50 to 75%.
You just turn one win into one loss. One loss into one win.
Yeah,
That's all you've done.
But if you really...
Out of 4?
Yes. It's just... And that number keeps growing higher and higher. That's just how, you know, statistics works out. So if you see someone with a 65% versus 70% and 75% versus 70%,
one was harder than the other.
One was way, way, way harder than the other. That's also why I think people get confused a little bit by stuff like, is 55% really that much higher than 50%? And the answer is yes, it is.
It really is. And you start to feel that if you're the 45%, probably more than if you're the 55.
It's also
you
why...
You suddenly start realizing I'm just not... You feel like you're never winning when you're the 40 or the 45.
Yeah, it's also why matchups out in Hearthstone rarely move outside of the 60-40 range. You know, 70-30 matchup is actually just so, so, so bad.
Yeah, and when you tell somebody, oh, this matchup's 70-30, somebody who's not really familiar with Hearthstone, those things, the numbers, they'll tell you, no, it's 90 versus 10, and then they'll play a few and you'll suddenly realize, actually, 70-30 feels like 90-10.
90-10 is, that's Quest Rogue versus Control Warrior.
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah.
If played by the best players, yeah.
And even then, it's probably not that bad.
I do think there's a case in some matchups where the best players versus the best players, if a matchup's 60-40, it becomes more weighted towards the 60 because the lack of mistakes removes some of the noise.
Sure.
Meanwhile, there's a Hearthstone game going on.
Sorcerer Apprentice, Magic Trick, Shooting Star, hit the 4/5, Shooting Star, Conjurer's Calling, easy.
Shooting Star.
Observe and reflect.
I mean, that works. I can't fault your logic.
Does Sorcerer Apprentice, Magic Trick, Mirror Image make your Sea Giant playable? It goes down to 5, then goes down to 3, so the answer is no.
Observe and reflect.
But Sorcerer's Apprentice, Magic Trick, let's see what I get, is the play he's decided on here.
Magic Trick again for another shooting star. The Arcane Explosion looks kind of nice, but it's just 1 mana off the power level shooting star. Says that's fine with me.
Point being, you can't now do the calling that you wanted to do with your version. And Jarla might identify that was a little bit desperate. It's kind of a weird looking play all around.
I think Jarla is very happy with how that turn went.
Yeah, I think so too.
Seiko just used a lot of resources. Not necessarily like resources in the sense that he's played his important cards, but more like he stopped himself from playing Mountain Giant for a very long time. Arcane Intellect picked up. That's the best draw in Seiko's deck right now.
Quite often is. But he's 1 mana away from being able to do anything useful right now. And that means that Jarla's going to still maintain some board presence. The good thing for Seiko, though, is he's still on 28, so Jarla doesn't have the bomb and pray.
The terrible thing for Seiko is that Jarla has 6 mana to spend next turn with his 6 mana.
Yeah. Strange how that works.
Really can't get much worse than that. Seiko is maybe analyzing whether going Conjurer's Calling now to just get a little bit more tempo makes sense. Such a hard decision to have to make. Sometimes you get very rewarded for it.
Sometimes you don't. Well, he went for it and didn't get very rewarded and didn't get very unrewarded. Just got.
I think Seiko's happy with that outcome.
Yeah, I think you'd have to take that. But
if this is what Seiko's game plan was, he is for sure happy with that outcome. Seiko does not want to cede tempo over to the Bomb Warrior at this stage of the game.
Yeah, and it's very close to tipping that way. Jarla, oh, that's nice for Jarla, not for this turn, obviously, but now it gives him many plays that work well for him. No point in saving the Acolyte of Pain because it wouldn't be useful with a Dynamatic till turn 8, and that is a mile away in this spot.
Jarla has to trade here. Otherwise, the 2-3 could go into the Ziliax, and then a 3-2 value trades the Acolyte of Pain.
Antonidas is nice in theory, but actually it looks pretty slow right now. The game about the board control is going for some time yet.
There's better draws. There's definitely far worse draws. Spellbreaker here is very powerful.
Yeah, it's cards time.
But is it good enough? Jarla could go Spellbreaker on the Twilight Drake and trade his Acolyte of Pain, but I don't think he really wants to give up that draw.
I think you're chasing your tail a bit if you try and kill every minion at this point.
Yep.
I think maybe just Dynamatic, draw 3 cards, and have a real beating of a turn, and hope you can brawl your way out of it with a Dr. Boom in your hand.
Dynamatic draw 3 cards is unlikely, right?
It's pretty likely you get 2 hits, and then you can trade him for the 3rd.
That's fair.
It's going to hit 2 of those things twice and 1 of them once most of the time. So you're kind of 2 in 3 to get it.
The math on it is hard to do off the top of your head, but you can kind of summarize it like that. It's more often
yeah,
than
that's
not,
a very close approximation. So you're 2 in 3 to get 2 cards.
I think it's important in Hearthstone in these kinds of spots to be able to do approximations.
You don't need the exacts, but you do need a feel for what's happening.
Light the fuses!
Jarla's saying he doesn't even...
Or you can just do that, which is an absolute fail.
Maybe...
F for Jarla.
So, are you really supposed to start with going face there?
No.
You're supposed to, even if you draw 3 and miss 1, that's fine. Like, Dynamatic deals 3 damage to your Acolyte of Pain.
No, you're not supposed to, because if you hit your 2-3 twice and your Acolyte twice, you really want to make that trade. Definitely.
Yes.
And that's a reasonably likely outcome. It's a thing that will happen often.
And this is very unlikely. This is 1 in 3 to the 5th.
Yeah.
Whatever number that is. 3 to the 4th is 81. So 1 in 243 of this outcome happening.
Yeah, that's a thing.
So 1 in 243 times, you also want to trade into the 2 and 3.
I think you need to add another 3 onto that.
3 to the third is 27. 3 to the fourth is 81.
Sure,
3 to the fifth is 243.
Just your weird way of saying 3 to the 5th.
How do you say it?
3 to the power 5.
3 to the power of 5.
Yes.
3.0 times 10 to the power of 5. That's actually not how it works.
That's not. It's not that.
Not even close.
That definitely doesn't work.
Yeah. 2.43 times 10 to the power of 2.
Stop. Why did I even encourage him?
You ever see those like calculators with scientific notation on them?
Have you seen how old I am? Of course I've got those.
Didn't you use like the slide rule?
First, well, the abacus first, then the slide.
Ah, yes. First it was just grains of sand.
That's what I use to process the information.
Does Spirit of the Shark do anything for Seiko?
What it does, it means his battle cries. No.
It works with Twilight Drake, but he's already played both, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it works with Harrison, but you don't get any cards or kill a weapon the second time. Sandbinder's pretty good.
And is that it?
Banana Buffoon.
Mana Cyclone, Banana Buffoon.
So all of his cards, basically. Pretty much every minion in his deck it works with, after saying it didn't work with much.
I think the minions it does work with are pretty lackluster.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of the point of the Shark in the first place.
Sure.
It just happens that in Rogue, you just overwhelm people with a lot of lackluster things.
Jarla is about 1 draw away from feeling very confident this game. I think that the addition of Dr. Boom to his hand would just make him...
The future is ours.
Yeah, he's not drawn many booms in any of these.
This is interesting.
Unity, precision, perfection.
Behold the tools of creation.
Astromancer, we haven't seen that yet.
I mean, this is just an irritating board. And there
it is.
The mad genius himself. Fibonacci.
Jarla has to do a little bit of calculations here, whether he really wants to play the Dr. Boom just yet. It means that he would likely have to shield slam the 2/4.
So here's my argument for playing it.
What
If you don't play it
now?
this turn, I don't think things get better for you on board for the rest of the game.
Yes, but you might want to line up the shield slam versus something better, because the Spellbreaker lines up against the 2/4 very, very, very nicely.
Yeah, you can't leave a Luna at 9 mana hanging around, can you?
Yeah, I wouldn't fault him for going something like Spellbreaker, Militia Commander here. I think that that's totally reasonable.
Okay, he agrees. And now he's changed his mind. Probably because he heard you say it. 30
Fair
minutes
enough.
in the future.
I must choose.
Not even playing Militia Commander, just
yeah.
going Spellbreaker instead.
Jarla often comes up with quite weird ways of dealing with things, but we've talked about this a few times over the last 3 days, and Spellbreaker has almost no other targets of relevance in this entire deck.
Well, one thing I want to point out
Now
is...
the Twilight Drake's gone.
Sure. I guess my point is less important now. But since he's shield blocked, right? If his opponent goes face, if Seiko goes face and plays a Sea Giant or just a singular Giant, for example, I believe the math now works out where Dr. Boom Mad Genius by itself with Shield Slam works, so he wouldn't have to go Hero Power Dr. Boom first.
Okay.
So he might be able to fit in a Hero Power from Dr. Boom instead of just the...
Which is always nice.
Yeah.
Well,
I would need to double check the math on that. I didn't really get a good look at it, but...
all right. Seiko going for the big things, gets the big things. But there's a brawl waiting, and there's a shield slam waiting.
Only decision now is whether he trades the Celiax. Decides not to, says that 3 damage is too much. Jarla just picked up a second shield slam. That means that no matter what,
kill
he
anything.
is winning this brawl. Even without that, couldn't you just go Dr. Boom, shield slam, shield slam?
Oh. Yeah, you can. So which is better? One leaves your opponent with a board full of pretty pathetic looking minions. The other one...
Well, here's my argument. If you lose the brawl, the 12-12 and the 7-9, you have to use double shield slam anyways.
Yes.
And you don't want to have to do that.
Yeah, you lose the brawl often enough that you might as well not risk losing it.
And you can just save the brawl for later on, because Seiko will need to pressure you out still. The 3-2, the 1-4, and the 2-4 aren't going to get the job done.
Oh, I love that
Slam, slam. And you're challenging Seiko to go wide and get brawled, or don't get wide and get mauled. By
Brawled or mauled.
Seiko, by Jarla's minions. Yeah.
Flash shield pickup.
Antonidas is pretty good here, but it's not
Good enough.
wide enough if it doesn't survive a turn.
It needs to survive like 2 turns before it really starts threatening Jarla. I think it could even survive next turn the brawl.
Yeah. But he knows there's no shields left, so brawl is the only option.
I also think where Seiko places this Ray of Frost is super interesting. You could put it on your Antonidas because maybe your opponent has to Omega Devastator it, which means you push more damage instead of freezing the other 2.
Okay.
But then you also risk the thing where, what if my Antonidas doesn't live? But then you're pretty happy, or if it does survive, but then you're pretty happy because your Antonidas lives.
So I think
Then you missurvive. So it's just like a very hard decision that you have to make.
And if Seiko is taking this amount of time to make, and apparently
I don't think this is obvious.
it's not obvious, but a decision between 3 things that you know what the decision
And
is
he's
about.
going for it. Yeah,
Nice.
I really like this from Seiko. I think this is like super next level.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't care. If it survives, it's doing its job on the board.
And this goes back to splitting up threats in Hearthstone. Like if your opponent has an answer for your minion, like let's say you could put Blessing of Kings on 2 minions, you generally want to put it on the smaller one.
Yep.
I mean, obviously it's
Situational,
situational dependent, but like let's say your opponent's running Assassinate and you have like a 1-1 and a 5-5.
This would be
You'd
a
rather
good
have a
time
5-5
for
and a 5-5 than a 1-1
master
and a 9-9.
plan.
Yeah, and even when you're trading your 2-4s and your 1-3s,
Yeah.
it's quite often
I
very
mean-
counterintuitive as to how to do it.
I think this was very counterintuitive
I
to
agree.
freeze your biggest minion. But that's also because you respect what your opponent has as an answer.
This would be a good time for
And
a
like the next
master
jump of logic is,
plan.
if your Antonidas lives, you're not complaining.
No, not much. I mean, I complain about a lot of things, so I had to just pause and work out for a second. Would I be complaining? I'd be complaining they'd killed my other 2 things off, probably, knowing me. But, yeah.
Jarla
Take-
saying, why would I let this Antonidas live? I don't care about this Augmented Relic.
Yeah, he cares enough to...
Oh, no.
But this now is good for us, because we get to explain... Sorry, we've explained it. You've explained it. But now everybody gets to see exactly how good this freeze on the Antonidas was.
Well, now you call it bad.
Apart from the person who sat there going, but no, it can't attack. That person...
In fact, I would
Get
say
out.
that Seiko's play actually got punished by what he did here. That's not a bad thing. Sometimes you take a calculated risk and it doesn't work out.
Sure. Yeah, anyway.
And again, one of the factors is, yes, he misses 5 damage, but because the Antonidas lived, it's totally fine. It's a
Yeah.
wash.
You can see he's got a handful of fireballs now.
Seiko's not complaining.
And what is interesting is how he's now proceeding. It's very tempting to just start using all your spells here and get more fireballs. Or you can have an Asim. And the point being that the fireballs don't get there that quickly against a warrior. They're great for inevitability.
They're good when you're ahead, because then you can actually pressure your opponent out. If you're fighting from behind, a lot of times they have stuff like Zilliax or Shield Block, or even Blast Shield from Dr. Boom. You really want it when you are fighting from ahead.
And that is indeed what he is doing now.
You ever think about how Ray of Frost Nightmare is technically a clear?
No.
Technically.
I have enough nightmares. I have to work with you.
I have a lot of nightmares too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was like one where you go to school and you don't have any pants.
Wow, I hated going to school, yeah.
That's about the same as working with me. That's the worrisome part.
Yeah, you stopped at the school bit. It's like...
This would be a good time for a master plan.
You can't kill this Ysera, right?
I mean, how do you win if you're Jarla here? Your opponent has 2 of the best minions in the game that are launching things at you. And your way of winning is what? Doing 30 points of damage to your opponent with this hand. I mean, Blastmaster Boom hitting for a lot, I guess, is how you win this. Find a situation where you can get a lot of bombs into your opponent's face.
My hand is full.
I mean, Seiko.
And then hope they draw some more.
Seiko even has the answer to this.
Yeah.
This game blew kind of way out of proportion with the brawl
That
outcome.
belongs in a museum.
Oh! Actually, Seiko just doesn't have to do anything. He plays 1 card a turn for the rest of the game. Ysera refills that card. Doesn't matter what he burns, and he never draws a bomb.
I don't even think bombs matter at this point.
And well, how do you lose then? I mean, they matter.
I think you lose by
Serve
not
and
capitalizing on tempo.
reflect.
But you've got this massive tempo on the board all the time.
Sure, but something like mirror image fireball just intuitively makes sense.
Yeah.
Time.
Seiko agrees with you, saying 1 card per turn. I mean, like this totally fits into the game plan, right? Because you're
Yeah, I'm
still
not
fighting
saying
for
you
them.
have to do that and it's a lockout, because it's not. But if you can just get away with,
Yep.
just do this,
Yep.
never draw a bomb, and kill your opponent at the same time.
I meant more so in the case of if you have 4 mana to play a fireball, he's probably going to end up playing a fireball.
Not sure. I agree.
Okay, then.
You've got 6 in hand.
But is doing 6 to your opponent who you're about to beat better for you than taking 5, where the only way you can die is by taking 5?
Does Seiko even have 5 bombs in his deck?
No, he has like
1,
This
2
would be a good
so
time for a
so
master
then
plan.
it's not even a consideration.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 9 cards, sure. But you keep your hand size up there so you can do this if needed.
I was
I'm
pretty sure
I'm
that
gonna
Seiko
argue
does
the
not
point.
have the... Like, if Seiko had 8 bombs in hand, then yes, what he's doing makes absolute
I
sense.
don't know the exact number. We've seen LX
Or 8 bombs
lose
dead.
brawls, and we've seen Harrison's takedown.
Alec did not shuffle any in.
Exactly. We've seen all the things.
In fact, we'll find out here. There's only 1 bomb in his deck.
Jarla.
And you're saying you don't want to fireball Jarla in the face.
Hey. I like playing calm and relaxed.
Hoping for the outcome, doesn't get it. 1 mini off. Is this just lethal? I count 30 with Fireball, Ping, plus 17 in play. 40 if we count the 2 Nightmares.
Sounds like
Seiko just has 4 damage over. Seiko is taking the series 2-1. In a
2-1.
pretty flaming hot finish.
and puts him to 8-2 in the
8-2.
division, which just about seals it for him. Now I'll probably ask you about that, how he feels about that as well. Make sure he's got the same numbers that we have, but looks like he's going to make it into those playoffs. And Jarla is the first person really to blink out of that chasing pack. 4 and 6, the way this is shaping up,
Yeah.
is going to be very hard to get
I
it
think
done.
that his skill level is not actually represented by his
Oh,
record right
not
now.
at all. Jarla's definitely a better player than that.
I just want to ask Seiko about that specific turn where he went Ray of Frost and Antonitis, because it's just like there's so many different things that are going on to make that decision.
Yeah, and he's not a slow player particularly. He spent a long time on that decision, so there's a lot in his head. Be interested to see what he says about that.
I don't know. I think that. it seems
Anyway,
like
we can have a chat with him and see how he sees it all, I believe. Hey, Seiko, congratulations again.
Hey, Lorna. Hey, Colin.
Is that you now, do you think, through 8-2? Does that put you into the playoffs?
Oh, yeah, it might be, but I think I still need one more win to get first for sure. So trying to get it next week.
I have a question for you, Seiko. There was one really interesting point in that last game, and that was which minion do you Ray of Frost? There's an Antonidas, Stargazer Luna that was silenced, and a Ziliax, I believe, and you ended up freezing the Antonidas. Could you walk through that thought process really quickly?
There was still a second Devastator left, and I felt like he's going to ignore my small minions if he can remove my minions with Rush, like the Luna for sure. So even against Brawl, if my Anton survives, I'm pretty happy, right? So I just ended up just freezing my Antonidas because even if it survives Brawl, and I might miss the 5 damage, but I'm still happy.
Yeah, that seems fair. Talk to us about Specialists a little bit. I know that last year, despite getting all the points that you got, you tended to prefer ladder to tournaments very slightly, I think. Is this a good mix of the two for you?
It's okay. I'm not too big of a fan, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
And in terms of the format of playing 1 match a week or 2 matches a week, does that suit you better than playing 14 matches in 2 days? Would you prefer the league or do you prefer the Masters?
Oh yeah, I prefer the league for sure.
Yeah, that's where I was really going with that, is the ladder simulator. Because you were known for finishing so high on ladder relentlessly.
So, Seiko, I just want to talk to you about this, another thing, and I've been asking a couple people today, how did preparation go? Because I know that you had a lot of travel that you had to do after Vegas. Was there anything that you wanted to submit for Vegas that you didn't, or any thoughts that you came from that tournament that you brought to this week of Grandmasters?
Oh, I was pretty sure that I would bring my tournament lineup from Vegas because I really liked the Bomb Warrior list I played, but then I saw APX lineup with all the one-offs, and I kind of wanted to test it, so I just submitted that.
Gotcha.
Excellent. Yeah, nothing better to do than test a deck in the middle of an important contest and win with it. So congratulations. Thanks so much for speaking to us. We're going to let you go so we can get on with the final match of the day now. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks again.
Yeah, see you.
You mentioned APX Void, who I talked with him. APX Void is a well-known mage player from the North American region. I talked with him when he was at 7-2 in Las Vegas, and he needed, I think, 3 wins to get to top 8. That didn't happen, and I think he either ended at an 8-4 record or a 9-3 record. But excellent mage player. I'm sure his mage list was pretty spicy, and that's why Seiko decided to pick it up.
Yeah, Seiko's pretty insane when it comes to anything. He can pick up a deck and just play it and understand apparently all the nuances. I've spent the whole weekend telling you how you've got to play a deck a lot to get the nuances. Seiko seems to break that rule and just pick it up and know everything straight away.
I'm sure he's prepared a lot, though.
He does. He works a lot on this game.
Yes.
And
that's a good win for him. 8-2 is not too shabby, Lorinda.
It's not, especially when everybody else is around that 50% mark, giving him a bit of breathing room. So that is that group done, I believe, for the day. But we're not done for the day. We still have 1 more match to come. It's going to be Silvername versus Bunny Hopper in the last match of EU Grandmasters. Don't go anywhere.